again. Okay, now tell everybody good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Delighted to have you all with us today. We're excited to actually host a marketing webinar at Spanish Cove. We've participated in many and know you all have as well. And we'd like to thank all the attendees too. But first, I'd like to introduce our panelists. I'll begin with Vicki and Tom Curry. Say hi.
Hello.
You all. And there's the Gillespies, Bill and Helen Gillespie.
Good
morning.
Hey. And Nan Scott. Hi.
Hi.
And then I'm with Nikki Buckaloo in the marketing office
In the
today.
same room.
We're in the same room, yes. So we've actually spent a lot of time together during the pandemic because Spanish Cove has continued to operate business as usual in unusual times, I guess you can say.
People still need a place to live.
People still need a place to live. People still call for information. They're shocked that we're still trying to do business and meet with people and have people move in, but we are. And
now, mind you, it's different.
It is very different.
There's a lot of things, a lot of hoops we got to jump through.
Yes. So we have to do, we do the COVID screenings 3 times a day.
Yeah.
We wear masks. We're not wearing masks right now because we're visiting, and we're not right on top of each other either. So we think that's okay. And we understand that the people that we're meeting with are vetted. The residents who live here are smart. We trust them. We trust our staff. They're responsible. So we're trying to all make really good choices to protect everybody. And that's why we think we haven't had the COVID virus, and we've kept the residents free from infection. So praise God for that. And thank goodness we have a really smart group of people that live and work here. So we're very appreciative over that. So this is why we came up with this event today. We just came up with the idea a few weeks ago, and it's because many of you probably realize this too, that as you've been living since the beginning of March during the pandemic, you talk to people and everybody's experience is a little bit different, and we're all in the same storm. We're all trying to figure out the best way to survive through it. But everybody's experience is a little bit different. Our boats are all different. And that's what I started thinking about. Was I started getting all these thank you notes from residents, from your families, from your friends saying, wow, you guys are still trying to do things. You're still going to work? Are you going crazy? Everybody thought I was working at home, that I wasn't coming to work every day. Don Bloss, our CEO, considers us all essential. So like the residents, I mean, we see each other every day, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So we just don't call you every day because we see you every day. And so it's been pretty exciting. Sure, we've had to adapt and do things we normally don't do.
But it's confusing for people out there in the community. They're wondering, in the greater community outside of Spanish Cove and outside, they're wondering what's it like living there during this.
Right. And then Nikki, I spoke to some of you, and I know you participated and many others did too in other communities in a focus group meeting. And then I was like, wow. And then we hear things. So I thought, you know what? People ask a lot of questions, and they should ask a lot of questions, especially right now when considering making a move or exploring options. And one of the things you should consider is, what is life like in a retirement community? We've never done that type of seminar before, but we thought we should do it now, especially because life is very different. Everybody says to me, well, are your residents all in prison? Do you have everybody all locked up? And I'm like, not really. I mean, the residents in assisted living and in our nursing care areas can't come and go as they please. And we are limiting visitors. That's the governor's orders. Sure. But we are still doing it to a certain extent. And then in our independent living area, sure, we're not recommending everybody go to a wedding every weekend with 300 people, but to be smart about it. And we recognize that you all are very smart, and we do recognize you're probably not going everywhere except for it's an essential visit, or you're making smart choices about coming and going. So
we want to talk about what's life like here at Spanish Cove, for them, people living here, and then also kind of what we learned in the focus group, how it's different, right? Is that kind of what our goal is?
Right. And then we know that the people that have signed up, I think we have about 35 people that registered for this event this morning and for the next 2 seminars, have questions. And so how this will work is, some of you that have been participating in the Zoom meetings know that you can type in a question, and we will be happy to answer those questions or direct it towards the person that it's for. You can also call in. So we have the whole marketing team. We have Susan and Stephanie and Cindy available to answer the phones. So if you have a question and you prefer to call it in, they will write it down and they'll give it to Nikki or I, and then we'll read it for either the Gillespies or the Corys or Nan to answer, or Nikki or I. So anyway, so thank you so much for being here.
What's the phone number that they call?
It's 405-354-5906. So 354-5906.
Okay. And I might just remember too that there's 2 more that you guys planned, Tuesday the 16th and Thursday the 18th. And we're going to be talking about the real estate part of this on the 16th. And then on the 18th, you're going to be talking about money related matters, right? With Eunice Corey and her team over at Well Preserved, right?
Yes. And another reason why these ideas came up is because, we're so focused on watching the media and listening to everything that we can and read everything that we can about this. And Dawn has pointed it out so many times that we're saturated with what's happening on the East and West Coast. And those experiences are so much different than in Oklahoma. And Don, as a public health official, we're grateful for that leadership, because he said, we've really been able to watch that and make good choices for how we should react and plan in Oklahoma.
Yeah, because there were real estate agents that I coached that were considered non-essential in many states. Like, they're not even able to sell houses. So people weren't able to move into communities like they are here. Yeah.
Wow.
So big differences. That's why we're going to be talking about those.
Right. Much big differences. And the virus went to those areas first also. So we learned in our area what to do good and what to not do good. So what works and what doesn't work. So anyway, I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Cool. Y'all ready to get started?
Yes, let's get started.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to first put a question out to the group. And that is, I think it would be great for you guys to share what has been your experience living at Spanish Cove. Like, that's the first thing I asked on my focus group, not knowing what people were going to say. And it was really enlightening that everyone kind of had different answers. So what has it been like for the last 3 months living at Spanish Cove? What stands out to you about that? So, and then I'll talk about my experience with what I've heard from other people that don't live at Spanish Cove. So who wants to start?
I will.
All right, Tom, go.
Okay. Well, my experience has been very positive. The administration has kept us very well informed on a daily basis, basically, on what's going on the outside, as far as what we should do, what we can't do, things of that nature. And so basically it's just been kind of a no-brainer. You just follow the suggestions and everything. And I have never felt that it was just very, very difficult. On occasion, maybe I'd like to go do something that I can't do, but outside of that, I've lived through that. And so I think my hat's off to our administration here, because they've kept us very, very well informed.
Right. And Jill's the one, I think, that writes this letter. I'm going to brag on her, because you guys get something every day, right? Like this long.
That's correct.
Yeah. And Jill was she was crowned the public information officer early on. And now it's like, used to, I could get a hold of Jill in the morning to chat with her about move-ins and stuff. And now she's like in the midst of public information officer mode for several hours sometimes in the day, right? Between meetings and then writing so yeah, I like that.
Yeah. At the end of February, I think, when the coronavirus hit that community in Washington, Don, I think it was like the last week in February, he sat down the executive team and he said, I'm not sure what's going to happen in Oklahoma, if this virus will come here, but if it does, Jill, you're going to be the public information officer and the director of marketing. And then Eric Peters, who's normally our director of housekeeping and food services, is also in charge of our supplies. So every day Eric calls the health department and lets them know how many surgical masks we have, how many thermometers we have, how many gowns we need. And so Eric, me, and Cheryl and Dawn kind of have different. Cheryl O'Neill's our chief operating officer, and she has another title right now. So we kind of, and Rustin is our director of safety controls now. So some of us have been given different titles to do in addition to our regular jobs. So it's been up until about 2 o'clock every day. It's been quite challenging, but I appreciate Bill Gillespie and several residents, because every day I was delivering with my team this letter, hand delivering to every resident in the apartments and in their cottages and emailing it out. And then Dawn allowed me to let the residents do it. So Bill and some other residents helped me deliver things. Sometimes you deliver 2 or 3 times a day messages, because the message sometimes changes. And Dawn also puts out a letter. So
I hope you're wearing a pedometer, Bill, when you're out and about.
Yeah.
So how many steps you're walking, right? Yeah. Who else would like to share what it's been like living at Spanish Cove? Vicki, were you going to say something?
Yes, I probably experienced a little different than Tom, because I still work part-time and I leave a lot to see friends and different admin in different places and work out. So it was quite a switch for me to be here and not get out. But that would have happened regardless of where I lived. And I was very cognizant of the fact that I needed to make sure I didn't get out and get infected and then bring it back here. So I stayed here and started opening things up. It was nice to, first time I went out and got something, it was like, oh, I wonder if I know how to drive. But
I felt the same way.
One of the positives about it, one of the positives about this, though, is I noticed people within the independent community were getting out more, especially when the weather was so nice. We're getting out, and with our social distancing, we were still communicating a lot more. So I got to know a lot more of the people here, because we just moved in the end of July, so I don't know everybody yet. And
now you know everybody from here up.
Yes, it's not always easy to recognize everybody, but I thought that was so nice that there was a lot more community, people getting together and socializing here at Spanish Cove, and so that was very enjoyable for me.
Very cool. Yeah.
And your dog and you walked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nan, what about you? I know you live alone, so you don't have a spouse or partner that you live with. What's it been like for you?
Well, I agree with Tom and Vicki. It's been very positive. Yes, there were a lot of changes because this community is so active just on campus with classes and meetings and various things where we all get together. And so, of course, that stopped for a big lot of people together and not being able to go to the exercise rooms and things like that. So again, once the weather really got nice, we saw everybody outside walking. Of course, with Vicki and I, we walk dogs a lot. I mean, Vicki and Tom, yeah, we've walked the dogs several times ordinarily anyway. And so that's been a great thing here, because you could still get outside.
Yeah.
But we saw lots of people outside walking, and everybody keeping distance and wearing masks. And, you know, you couldn't visit each other inside your apartments, but we managed to meet outside a lot. So yeah, I got to know my fellow neighbors in my building much better because we saw a lot of each other. And it was, you had to stop going out. As Vicki said, you couldn't really go out. I didn't leave campus since the end of March at all, because I had everything that I needed here.
Yeah, so what did you do for food, Nan? I mean, what have you been doing for food when you can't go off campus?
Well, the Cove will never let you go hungry. So we normally, you get one meal a day, and of course we couldn't go to the main dining room because the main dining room is in our health center, which is totally closed down for outside visitors, and we're considered outside visitors during this time. So they deliver 1 meal a day, every day, 7 days a week. Plus they have care packages that I think every other week on a Saturday, they would extra supplies, not just extra snacks and milk and some few additional food items, but toilet paper and Kleenex and paper towels, which I will never run out again because I had already stocked up. But they supplied all of that. Plus we'd have little get-togethers too outside when what they call Thirsty Thursday, where we could, Jill and her crew would go around in a cart and we could get a soft drink or and a snack outside and go around the campus, and everybody had a chance to at least see everybody and talk to everybody. So it's been great, and I can't imagine. I'm like Vicki and Tom. I can't imagine if I were still by myself in my home, because you'd have to get out. Except we've learned now a lot of things of how to order online, get groceries delivered, get prescriptions delivered, all kinds of packages. Even when the Cove was pretty much shut down, our campus was, but they could deliver it essentially to our gate guard, and they would then get all those packages sent up. So, and I'm like Vicki, when I first got out to drive, I wasn't sure how to drive and went to the grocery store, and I wasn't sure what kind of procedure you had to go through at the grocery store. It'd been so long. But otherwise, it's just, I can't imagine being anywhere else during this.
So I'd like to add a few comments to those points that you all had made. Once again, our experience is a little bit different because we were in our 8 o'clock meeting this morning, and one of the members of the executive team said that her neighbor had moved to a community and moved out and moved back home. They didn't sell their house, they kept their house. And so she was asking her, well, what are you all doing there? We've always had free room service. So whenever you don't feel like going to the dining room, you can always have your meals delivered to your apartment or cottage, and there's no charge for that.
So you had a system for that.
So we had a system for that. And we had meal plans. And so whether you were signed up for 10 meals or one a month or 1 meal a day, we are still delivering every one a meal. They call it into the dining room. There's several choices to choose from, and you get free room service. And also the care packages have been free. So our food service department has been delivering free care packages. And for people who are signed up for phase 2, our charter members and our Spirit Club people, they're used to coming out here and working out and coming out twice a month for meals. Obviously, we're not allowing outside visitors on our campus. So we've also have delivered them some care packages.
Oh, to their homes?
Yes.
Oh, how cool.
My team has, and so has our wellness team. So that's a perk of also being part of Spanish Cove. But we haven't charged for any of that. It's all been free. Another thing to think about is, we've all sharpened our skills. Nikki did a seminar on silver linings, and we all have learned how to use technology much better than we ever have before. And Kathleen Garrett, our events coordinator, and Debbie Miller, our wellness director, brought everything online. And Bill Gillespie, our town hall president, put everything online. So our last resident meeting, we had almost 60 people on that call, residents. And I think Kathleen's helped purchase like 20-something iPads with people and has set them up online.
Well, let me say something about that, because that's a definite difference between all communities are different. We know that, right? Now, you guys are all biased because you work here at Spanish Cove and you live here at Spanish Cove. And there are some amazing communities out there, no doubt.
Right.
I will tell you that one of the things I love about Spanish Cove is that when we say, hey, we want to do an online thing or we want to do something that's technology oriented, the residents are either, number one, already equipped, you guys already use technology, you know how to do it, or you're willing to try it, and there's staff members that will come out and facilitate making that happen. And so that's really a cool thing. I talked with one community that I said, hey, let's do an online Zoom conversation, and they said, well, our residents don't really use technology. And I said, well, don't we have a staff member there that could maybe show some of the people how to do it? And they said, we really don't have the manpower for that. And so the fact that you all have a designated staff member and residents that are doing that is a major point of difference. And I don't think a lot of people think about that.
Right.
And maybe none of us thought about it till everybody was quarantined.
Right.
And when you're quarantined, that is a big perk, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. But I think Bill was trying to say something,
Go ahead,
and I
Bill.
jumped on him.
Sorry.
Yeah, I never knew what Zoom was. I never heard of it.
Right. Now you know, right?
Being president of town hall, we kind of shut down for the last couple months.
Right.
And I finally decided that I know enough about Zoom, so we're going to put it on Zoom the first Tuesday of next month.
Yeah.
Yay, that's exciting. Very exciting.
And so we can get it back up. But Zoom is very important because when we shut down all these activities, it kind of left you kind of loose, and the people can't meet together anymore. So we have to keep our distance, and you can't have more than 10 people in a room. So it's kind of hard to hold a meeting.
Town hall, yeah.
And so Zoom is very important. I didn't think, I was scared of it to start with, but I finally decided I'll give it a try.
Yeah, well, you figured it out, and now it's kind of easy, right?
I figured it out. And, the activities that we used to come together for, like bingo and exercises and things like that. Of course, we've opened up exercise now, but it's just for 10 or less people in the class, so they have to have more classes. But it's starting to come back, which we do appreciate. But when all this kind of closed down, Helen and I decided we needed to have a set day, a set way of living, and to keep our activities going, we went and got our workout equipment from the gym, and we brought it home, and we got up at a certain time every morning. We had our breakfast, we worked out, and we went out and walked, and we had little extra jobs we took on. Get those done, we'd eat again, and then go out and walk some more. And the walking was good for us, and also it was a way of meeting with the other residents around here that we kind of
I'm curious about something. I know that one of you guys alluded to the food situation and how you're getting care packages, Nan. You talked about that. But what if you did need groceries? How are you guys handling groceries? And let's just say, I don't know, all of you all are pretty tech savvy, but people who are not really very tech savvy, how are they getting groceries brought in?
Well, Helen learned how to order by mail from Walmart, which doesn't cost you a thing. And you just order, and they put it on your credit card if they have it, and ship it to you, and it's delivered right to your door.
Wow, awesome. Yeah.
Also,
and some of the residents who are not real tech savvy, the code was also very, very generous in that once a week you could order just a very few items. They called it 8 essential items from Walmart, and then the staff would order it online and go to the Walmart and pick it up once a week, for particularly for residents that don't have computers, aren't tech savvy. So that helped a lot for a lot of those folks. And then the rest of us, yes, we learned to order online, and Walmart, Homeland, Aldi, even Sprouts, I think here in Yukon, all of them, they learned how to do a lot of, some of them you did pay a little bit of a delivery fee for them, but so a lot of residents have gone that way. But as I said, the staff also would pick up things. Sometimes it was hard to find certain items, but they would try. And so that's worked out really well and I know a couple of 90-plus-year-old that are not just real tech savvy, but they do get online, some that learned how to order things online, and several of them said, oh, this is the greatest thing going, this technology, because they said they were going to continue to shop online for their groceries.
Yeah, I think most of us are. I'm not, there's no need to go to the grocery store anymore.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one of the things that has been really interesting around here, you know, we've had a number of holidays during this period of time. We've had Mother's Day, we've had Easter, Cinco de Mayo. Well, the residents at Spanish Cove have not missed any entertainment, any extras. You know, we've gotten treats, extra treats. We've had special meals delivered. And even on Cinco de Mayo Day, Edgar Cruz came out and he rode in a golf cart, and the marketing team followed him with tacos, and he played for us, and they went around to all the apartments and the cottages. So
Now, you said,
entertainment
I'm just going to see if it's okay to say this, but was it just tacos or was there something else on that golf cart?
There were a few extra drinks on that.
A few extra drinks.
Margaritas.
Yeah.
as there are each Thursday. But the marketing team, you know, that's quite a deal. There are, Jill, 28 apartments, I don't know, any number of apartments, plus the cottages that are outside our range, and the team has gone, you know, to all the different.
Well, and Edgar Cruz,
It takes about hours, and then the heat.
Edgar Cruz was booked to be do a concert here, right?
Yeah, I
Right.
had him scheduled. We booked him probably 6 months before. Well, I booked him, and then we were going to have him come out that evening because we always do. We always do Mexican food and margaritas and
Right.
Edgar. That's just a yearly thing. And then Nikki, her Senior Living Truth Series, they were visiting retirement communities doing their bus tour.
Yeah.
And you were scheduled to be here that morning. So
It was all great.
it was all
So
great
cool.
because we already had
Right.
Edgar here. And so we contacted him and say, hey, Edgar, you know, we realized we weren't going to have you come all day because it's a little bit different now.
Right.
And so he's like, I still would like to come. That's wonderful.
It
So
was probably good for him to get out too.
yes. So it was wonderful. People danced and we
Yeah.
practiced social distancing and
Yeah.
everybody wore a mask. And like Helen said, it was challenging. I think Debbie and I on those Thursdays, 17,000 steps in those days. So,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
but it's worth it. We have, so those of you that are listening and have never been to our campus, we do have an open campus. We have 180 apartments, 24 separate buildings with 8 apartments in each building. And so because of our natural layout, and we have 28 cottages that are right next to our campus. Then on our south end of the campus, we call it our crown jewel. And that is where we have the pavilion. It's called the pavilion, and we have assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, long-term care, basements for safe spaces for storms. That's on the south end of our campus. But because of our natural layout, we kind of practically practice social distancing anyway. We're not under one roof. So really nobody knows what you're doing except for the 8 apartments in each area.
Yeah.
And people park their cars right outside their apartment. And we're just naturally segregated that
Right.
way. So
Yeah.
our residents have afforded a little bit more freedom because we do practice what the governor says we should be following, but we don't have to practice what assisted living and nursing home residents have to do because
Right.
we're not under one roof, which is the case for a lot of retirement communities.
Right.
And so they're more restricted. So who would have thought that an open campus would ever be an ideal situation during a pandemic? So,
Yeah.
and you all have been getting your steps in. I see them walking.
All the
I'm
time.
so jealous. They walk so much. I don't know how many miles you all walk every day. And 10 miles?
4.
4 miles. Oh my gosh. Vicki, how many miles do you walk every day?
Usually about 4. I do mine all at once. The Gillespies do theirs in 2 sessions.
Okay.
So.
And our wellness team, you know, before we opened back the plaza is our building that we have our wellness activities and events and fitness areas. And before we opened that up a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I can't remember. But before we did that, Debbie Miller and her team and Kathleen, they were delivering weights and
yoga mats.
Yeah, yoga mats. In fact, I know you all are missing yoga right now and stretch and strengthen right now. So sorry, Debbie, sorry, Kathleen, sorry, all of you all, but thank you for joining us and sharing with our attendees what life is like during the pandemic.
Well, and I noticed.
What, Bill?
She scheduled another yoga for us.
She did, okay, yeah. So for those of you that are wondering, we are still having our activities or exercise classes right now, but you just have to make an appointment. We're limiting it to no more than 10 in a group. And I'm allowed to give marketing tours. And the reason why Nikki's allowed in my office right now is I can have small group meetings with no more than 4 people, including myself. So I've been giving tours and I can have 3 people with me. And as far as wondering about residents, the family and friends coming in to visit them, you know, we are asking that we restrict visitation. You know, the financial health is also important in a retirement community because it is a business. And we are being very careful about who we let come to our campus and who we meet with. And the same with the residents. So we have residents right now who have gone through some things. Nikki's moving some residents. We just had our brand new assisted living expansion happen. So we had many new assisted living apartments available. So some residents decided, you know what, I've lived in my apartment 20 years, 15 years, and Nikki's moving, I think, about 5 people over to assisted living. She's been working on those moves. And some of them have family members because they're going through serious things. And Dawn has allowed them to come on campus to help them in their parents' homes deal with things. So we can't let everybody just have a free-for-all, let everybody's friends and families just come for a chat. But if it's an extremely important reason to visit a resident or a family member, they can call me, they can call Dawn Bloss, they can call Cheryl, and we think about it and we're being smart about it and we're screening them. Nikki and her team all have to wear PPE when they're moving people, personal protective equipment, to the pavilion. She's got her mask, she's got all of her stuff, and she's been screened. Her sticker.
My sticker's down here. I hid it for the camera.
So we're being screened 3 times a day and we're being smart about it. And so we have closed all of our entrances except for one. Now the residents, you know, are free to come and go because the governor said they should stay in place. You don't have to. And actually, we checked with our legal team, and it's against the law. It's honestly against the law to say to a resident, you cannot leave, and if you leave, you can never come back in. That's a decision we made based on our opinion with our attorneys. And like Dawn said, we know our residents are smart. We know our residents are responsible. We know they will be careful. We trust them. And it is a trust factor. And it's the same with our staff too.
Well, that's one thing I wonder about. I was going to ask you guys, because I think one of the things I've learned in my focus groups that I've done is, and one of the ones you guys were on, is that there's definitely a leadership philosophy about how to handle the caution, how to handle the protocols and all that stuff. And every community's leadership is a little different. I know you guys didn't know this question was coming, but if you don't mind, I'd like to throw it out there. How would you describe the leadership at Spanish Cove and how they have handled the COVID crisis, from Dawn Bloss down through the marketing team, through all of the staff? But I'm really mainly talking about the people making decisions about your life. How would you describe that?
They have protected us so we feel safe. I can't think of any better place to be and feel safe. They truly have protected us.
And Helen, what would you say that when you say they've protected us, what are some specifics that you would say make you feel safe in particular?
Well, to know that strangers or other people are not coming into our campus, that if we needed something, it would be delivered by our employees who are restricted also in their activities. They just can't go about, going out to dinner and going to the movies and whatever. We know that they are restricted, so they can bring things to us. And you know, we just know we just don't have that virus entering into the gate every day.
Right. Checkpoint Charlie makes sure that we are all supposed to be here.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, and there's so much to do around here, and we have such a great campus that, you know, we really aren't missing. We're just doing it right here.
Awesome. Yeah, Vicki, you
like
were
to
going to add
say
something.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. We looked around at a lot of places, and one of the reasons we selected Spanish Cove was because we felt like the all the people who work here listen to us. We have a say in things. Obviously, we don't make policy, but I feel like we're not just dictated down to without our input too. So I think throughout all this, I felt like we've been communicated really well. We're part of the solution, not just having things told to us that we have to do right then. I think it's a partnership, and that's one thing I really like about Spanish Cove.
Yeah. Nan, what about you? You've lived here the longest, I think, of all you guys, right?
But Helen's mom lived here.
Oh,
too.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I've been here almost 3 years. Yeah, and when I was looking, when I came to Spanish Cove, number one, I loved the campus field. I did not want to live in a high-rise hotel, you know, all under one roof, and you never go outside for anything. And so that was number one. But number two, most important, was how business was run at Spanish Cove from dawn all the way through. Everybody is so well informed, so generous in their information. And it just impressed me then, having no idea that it was even going to be better when this pandemic came around. And as everyone has said, this is the safest place we could have been. And being informed and working with residents and all the way up through dawn, everyone keeping us so informed about what was going on and what their suggestions were. And nothing is ever really, as you say, dictated to us. These are good suggestions, and most everyone really listens to them. And we have a lot of input with all of our staff. And I can't say enough about the entire staff that's worked so hard for the last.
You guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, from the top down, because, yeah, even though you were working, but you all were very restricted. The staff was very restricted in what they could do once they left campus, because everyone went home, and if you had a spouse and a family, they did a lot of the grocery shopping.
I just went to the grocery store for the first time this past weekend with my husband. Yeah,
So,
and I wore a
they were
mask,
fine.
and I was smart about it. And
So I'm just curious to talk about that, because I don't think that's really common knowledge that as a community, you guys have asked the staff members to kind of limit their social activities outside of the workplace. How does that, I mean, is that a dictator saying you can't go out and see people, or is that a partnership like it was described where the staff members are happy to do that? How's that play out?
yeah, so in the very beginning, we discussed, and Dawn really stressed to the executive team to stress to their employees that what the governor is saying for the population that's over 65, we should be practicing too. So if we're asking residents to really not go to Walmart every day because you forgot to get something, or if you could do something online, order online, or church online, or if you, we literally were asked to practice the same behaviors as the residents, you know. So like on Easter Sunday, you know, we did curbside pickup from a restaurant, and we did not go get together with our family and friends like we would normally do. So yeah, we were practicing the same thing. And in the very beginning, they raised the employees' wages because they thought it was going to be hazard pay. Well, we never got the COVID. And so then it was more like anxiety pay because everybody was like being so careful and anxious. And automatically people think that if you work in a retirement community or if you live in a retirement community, you have the COVID, you have the coronavirus, you know, because you work in this setting. Well, that creates anxiety because that's not the case. We're all being smart and careful. And we know that we're all healthcare professionals and we're smart, we're responsible. We care about the residents. We care about ourselves. And the residents, Helen, you made a lot of them. You sewed thousands of masks for the staff, for the residents, for our families. So we brought them all home for our families too. And so we were smart about it. And then, you know, as things continue to open up, we're still trying to be smart about it too.
There was one other thing that I learned about, and I don't know about all communities, but there were Spanish Cove and a couple of other communities that I spoke with basically went to their staff, especially in the nursing area, in the long-term care and the healthcare setting, and said, we really don't want you working in multiple locations.
Right. And that's why we raised the wages too. Back in February, Don did that. He said, you know, I know nurses sometimes or CNAs or CMAs will have 2 or 3 jobs and they asked for them not to do that and
compensated them.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to.
We also early on identified in case we did get the coronavirus, we identified a team of nurses and CNAs and CMAs that stepped up to the plate. And because we just expanded, we actually have an isolation area. And so they went ahead and equipped that whole area with an isolation area with separation, plastic. And it's in a different area in the pavilion. And they identified a special team that would agree to take care of the residents if they develop that, because we also made the decision that if a resident became infected, we would not have them go to another place. We would take care of them here.
So was that something you guys were all informed about and knew about? And see, I would think from an outsider standpoint, if I had a family member that lived here at Spanish Cove, knowing that in and of itself is kind of what Helen, you described as feeling like you were safe. It's like, for me, what I hear from a lot of people is it's not so much it's the anxiety of not knowing what to expect that's scary, right? It's uncertainty that we don't like. And it sounds to me like they covered the bases. And
right. We did. And so, you know, one of the things that really, as a marketing person, it's always I know the benefits of living at Spanish Cove, and I try so hard to let people know those, but especially during this pandemic, I can't even imagine people that don't live here being isolated, wondering how to go get groceries, wondering about their meals, having light bulbs go out and not having people be able to come over and fix it, or having your heat or air go out and having it fixed. Well, how do you do all that when you're terrified about the people who can come into your home, and to go to a store and you get there and there's the shelves are bare, you know? So
it was interesting. I have a friend who her mom lives here, and she told me she did the order like you talked about, where you could let Spanish Cove know you needed some stuff from Walmart and they go get it.
Yeah.
And they came back and delivered it to her, and she was like, it wasn't the right stuff, but it was because they didn't have everything right that she needed. So they made a best guess adjustment of, okay, well, if they don't have this, then we'll substitute it with this. And, you know, so that's what a family member would do. I mean, if given the opportunity as an adult child of a parent who lived here, I would be able to go do that, but they couldn't. So
we were doing that.
Is making those decisions for people, and it's like, okay, well, so Rosemary can't have this, but I think she would like this, right?
Literally. So the room where people normally play bridge and dominoes and cards became our grocery store, and we would tell people that in my ShareFax Not Fear letter, that's our daily communication letter, the grocery store procedure, and we did put in there, please be patient with us and understand that if we can't find Splenda, you might be getting Equal, or if we can't find, I don't know, a certain brand of yogurt or bread, we got you this kind, and we hope it works. And so many of us are, we consider you all our family. I mean, many of us were here when Helen's mom lived here, Helen Gillespie's mom lived here. And so we feel pretty blessed for
We've been talking a lot. Should we let them talk some more?
Yeah.
So I'm going to just point out too that under the Q&A, there's a Q&A button on if you guys are listening in as attendees, and you can type in questions. And just to point out, Robin Gunn with the Oklahoma Senior Journal shared a shout out. Hi, Robin. Thanks for joining us and for sharing how much you appreciate Spanish Cove and all that they do. What else would you guys want to share? If you could tell the public, it's just imagine that the whole world is listening right now and they're wondering what they need to know about Spanish Cove related to now or in normal times. What would you share with them?
Well, I would say I never felt like we were left in the dark about anything, because like I mentioned earlier, on a daily basis, we get communications from the administration, Don, Jill, and the team, and we have little boxes outside our door, and there'd be little messages in there, and it'd bring us all up to date on what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I'd get up in the morning and ask Vicki, I said, well, what's going on out in the real world? And we'd just wait for the message to come, and we certainly were kept informed of things that were important about our.
Yeah. So you didn't have to rely on the news stations to tell you what you needed to know. You had people here telling you what was important. Yeah. Vicki?
Sorry. I was going to say, one of the things that I like about this place is just the sense of community. Everybody is friendly with everybody, welcoming, open. You always feel like you belong here. They're happy to learn about you and talk with you, and I feel like I've made a lot of new friends since I've been here, which I really enjoy, and that's one of the reasons we like moving.
Well, and the other thing I find interesting, there are very few employees that you meet around here who do not speak to you by name.
Yes.
How many places, institutions would you go where the people know you by name and greet you just like they're one of the residents too? And there's never been anything that we needed and asked for that wasn't attempted to be taken care of.
That's awesome. That's always good to hear. Nan, anything else you want to add?
No, just adding to what everyone has said. It is like a big family out here. All the staff, all the residents, everybody generally, because with the last 2 or 3 months, have been really understanding and open and amenable to all the changes. Yes, there's a lot of people are really missing family and things like that, but most people have really stepped up, from residents all the way through our staff. The biggest advantage I think we've had here starts at the top because of Don Bose and Cheryl, head of nursing and our COO, I guess, because Don's past experience in public health and understanding things, and Cheryl's experience, because they made decisions very early, as Jill was saying, back in February, when things looked like they were beginning to really move from the two coasts, and put in a lot of things, a lot of plans at that time of what they were going to do at each step of if they had to restrict more and more, especially in the pavilion where the most vulnerable are living. But they organized and they bring the staff in, as Jill was saying. Everybody has their specific jobs, and went from there. And they keep up with every day, informing us of what's going on. And I couldn't be more pleased. And as Don even has said now, that he still wants to be fairly slow and deliberate in how things are opening up, because we've done really well and we don't want to have problems down the line. So I just think it's the best decision I think I've ever made was to move here, because it's just been really great.
I want to kind of give a little bit of praise too to Dawn and the team, and specifically Dawn, because I will tell you that early on as a vendor, as a vendor partner who helps move people in and we sell homes for people, there were people in transition when this all happened, right? Like they were in the process, we had a plan in place, and then all of a sudden, we got to change plans, right?
Right.
And it wasn't just Spanish Cove. We had other communities where people were moving to. And I called the executive directors of the communities because I wanted to know what we needed to do to make sure that we were doing right by the resident and the community. I didn't want to mess it up, right? And I certainly didn't want to put anybody at risk. And so I called, and it was interesting. Dawn called me back like at 6 or 7 o'clock that evening. And I did not get calls back from the other people at all. And I'm just going to tell you, that's very telling, that somebody in that level of leadership in a large organization would take the time during the evening to call me and say, Nikki, what do you need to know? And I said, well, here are my questions. Here are my concerns. I don't know who else to ask. He spent 30 minutes with me on the phone saying, alleviating some fears that I had, giving me some guidance, sharing with me some facts that were coming from, that I didn't know about, and giving me kind of a path, right? And I just felt so appreciative of that, because there were 2 executive directors that I called that I've still not heard back from. And I keep getting rerouted to, different people who don't have the answers. And I think that, to me, I want to talk with the person in charge. And if I can't get to the person in charge, then I have concerns, because that means that the people who live there also probably can't get to the person in charge, right? And what you all are telling me is you have an open line of communication to Dawn, and that's unique. I think that's a unique thing, and not all people really, you don't always need to talk to Dawn. Jill and them handle a lot of things without having to go to Dawn. But if it's a decision Dawn has to make, his responsiveness matters.
Absolutely.
His responsiveness matters. And, Susan was so funny, because we're moving, like Jill said, 3 or 4 people right now, like in like one after the other. And there's lots of logistics. There's lots of hoops to jump through when people, especially moving into assisted living.
Right. Like Nikki and her team are moving from independent living to assisted living, new apartments. Yeah.
And there's lots of questions like, what we can and can't do, and, all this. And Susan Ellis is like, okay, let me find out. And she will message over and she'll ask all the right people. And then literally within an hour or so, I've got answers.
Right. And, people call here and they're like, you're really meeting with people. You're really moving people. And I guess the pandemic has paralyzed people to a certain extent. And it's so scary for people to think that, because I know throughout this whole thing, when I drive home in the evening, when I come to Spanish Cove, it's so happy here.
Yeah.
Everybody's so excited, and we're happy. We visit, we're being smart. We're wearing masks. We're trying to stay 6 feet apart from each other, but we're at least, like you all were saying, we know each other. We've gotten to know each other even a little bit better during this.
It's like a small neighborhood.
It is like a small neighborhood, but people are really living life. And then I leave here, and before things started opening back up, you would drive home and everything was dead and closed, and it was depressing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I'd come back to work here and I'm like, I'm so glad that everybody's here. That
I
they don't
asked
have
you
to
that
see
one day.
that.
I said, why are you so happy all the time? And you're like, because I go to work and everybody's happy.
Exactly. And then the other thing is that, it has been moving in slow motion to a certain extent, because Nikki's helping some people move in whose apartments we're renovating. And now that has been a slower process, because we have been careful about letting contractors on campus, and some contractors don't want to come and work. And so those processes are happening a little bit more slowly. And we've done some, contact-free appointments where we've done work orders to renovate people's apartments via Zoom, through FaceTime with our construction team, with Rustin. And that's kind of exciting too, with some of the people that are moving in, to not have to come out in person to actually see what's happening in their apartment that they're moving into.
Yeah. If there was one thing that you all would change or do differently, now that you know what you know now, if this happened again next year, God forbid, knock on wood, it's not going to happen. But if it were to happen, what would you do differently, if anything?
I don't think I would do anything differently.
No,
I can't think of anything.
I echo that. I can't think of anything either.
Okay.
Well, maybe keep on learning a little more technology.
Well,
Okay.
for me,
Not have gotten rid of all our disinfectant and all our hand sanitizer
Yeah.
before we moved here. I guess
Hang on to that.
Yeah.
Hang
one
on.
of the things we didn't take with us. Other
Ellen,
than that,
Helen, why would I need to learn anything new when you're across the hall?
exactly.
she helps us out.
Tech support right across the hall.
That's right.
And mask support too.
Right.
Exactly, Helen. Yes.
Right. Wow, that tells me a lot that you wouldn't do anything different. Like you feel like
I can't think of anything. I think
Wow,
everything.
exciting.
Now, I'm sure there are things that could be done better. I don't know, but from my vantage point, I think everything was addressed. You talked about Don. When this first started, they started delivering care packages and things like that. He called, I answered, and he asked, well, is everything okay? And was there anything in the care package we missed? And on and on and on. And I won't tell him what joke I told him. So anyway, he was very, and I hung up. I thought, well, that's kind of neat. You know, he had a call from the head guy, and he's
Right.
interested. And
Not only that, but he knows our names when
Yeah.
he sees us.
Yeah.
He knows who we
No,
are.
yeah, he knows
Even during
everybody.
during this whole time, you would see Don on campus walking around on occasion, and he'd always stop and talk and ask you how everything was going. The only thing I would add, if I were looking again, I'd never thought about asking about what do you do when there's a pandemic.
Right?
I ask about storms, tornadoes, and fires and things like that, but
You never had
And-
you had no reason to ask about that, but people
no,
now,
not really.
now they should though, right? I mean, when
Right,
we do this
right.
Senior
Well,
Living
yeah.
Truth series, we give people the questions
Right.
to ask communities, right? And one of the questions is, what do you do if there's a tornado, that kind of thing.
Right.
But now we've got to update our list. It's like, well, what happens if there's a pandemic and we're all quarantined or we're
Right.
all staying at home?
Right.
What are the things you do? And I'm sure your marketing team is on top of that as far as creating here's what
Yeah.
we do if.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
implemented incident command structure, our ICS is what Don calls it, and that's because of his public health background.
Right.
Right.
And the News 9 was out here, I think, was it Tuesday evening, interviewing Don because some assisted living and nursing homes are pushing to reopen.
Right.
And Don is like, I don't know. I mean, it's not a one size fits all formula. We need to really
Right.
review the information and be careful about our
Right.
plan. So
Right.
they're not reopening Monday.
Oh.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, when I come in as an outside vendor to the independent living, I go through the checkpoint Charlie, like everybody, you guys do too. And they
Right.
do my temperature and they ask me questions and I have to go through that. And then
And we've notified them that Nikki's coming, by the way.
correct. Yeah, I have permission to come to the gate.
Yes.
Okay. So I can't just show up. If I just showed up, they'd say, yeah, you need to make sure you have an appointment with
Right,
somebody, right?
yeah.
And then the assisted living front door, I had to go through there for the first time the other day. And I had been with the moving crew, so I had back door access. I'd already come through the main checkpoint and I got locked out because the movers were done and they shut the door and I was stuck outside. So I had to walk around the building and it was late. We were here till 8:30 that night because this resident, we wanted to get her completely set up before we left. And so it was 8:30. And then so I went around to the front door and I read the thing and it said, don't press the bell, call the number. So I called the number. The home health department answered. They said, we'll be down. And they came downstairs and they let me in. I had to hand sanitize. I had to get my temperature checked again. And they were very diligent, right? And I thought, this is what I would expect, right? Like this is, to me, it's a new normal. I don't like it. It's irritating. It takes longer. It's frustrating, all those things. But it's important. And I think that the residents feel safer as a result.
Mhm.
And it limits our exposure. As a vendor, I worry about bringing it in. I don't want to infect anybody. So the fact that they're making me take precautions helps me also be safe, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And on that note, one of the great things about Spanish Cove, we're a life care community. And so the residents that live in independent living, we've had residents that have lived here a really long time.
20 or more years.
20 or more years in their apartments. And some of them, relied heavily on, even though they got home health care from us, if they wanted it, they still relied on other people to come in and help them with some things. And one of the greatest things about being here is that they didn't have to worry, because if that person needed to shelter in place because maybe they had some underlying factors, they didn't have to worry. Nobody had to worry, because our home health team was doing it.
Yeah.
They've been picking up the pieces. Our nurses, our staff are able to help people live longer in their apartment independently. And we've allowed people to continue to do their procedures, because we know that those are important. And if it's your daughter that has to pick you up and take you to an appointment because you're going to be under anesthesia and they want to be with you, even though you can't go in probably because of the hospital rules, we are giving people permission for things like that. Yeah. So we're
it's a case by case basis.
It is a case by case basis, because there's not a one size fits all formula. So
not everybody's the same.
Yeah.
We have a question or a comment, it looks like, from Marilyn at Marilyn Olson, one of our good buddies over at Villages OKC. And she said, and they're a partner with Spanish Cove as well. You guys are members there.
Yes.
And she said, thank you so much. And she said, please tell you guys that you guys make them proud, because they're doing one of these things where they're creating a word dictionary to try to empower people regardless of age, instead of using words that disempower people. And she said there's been some things that have been said on this call that she's going to take and add to the word dictionary. So that's nice, right? You guys have really added to that.
Our residents consider themselves essential, and Dawn considers you essential and us essential, which I think is pretty cool. We're all on the same level playing field, and we learned from you all. So why would we think you're not capable of making smart choices and being around people and doing things the right way? I mean, there's a huge trust factor there.
Let me ask, I know we're at the bottom of the hour, but let me ask one question. Do any of you consider yourselves vulnerable? That word bugs me a little bit. Now I know there are things that make people vulnerable. And so just at a brief comment, do you consider yourself vulnerable? Yes or no, and why?
That's those older people.
Those older people. Okay. Thank you for that, Helen. Yeah.
Well, I think right now, the group today, we don't feel as vulnerable because most of us are pretty healthy at the moment. There are a lot of residents who are much older that have underlying problems. What'd you say, Helen?
There's our dinner delivery.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But
lunch has arrived.
Yeah.
Dinner delivery is there. Yeah.
But that's the main thing. Yeah, we don't consider being vulnerable, only that our age may put us at a higher risk. And
yeah.
But
being 65 or older doesn't necessarily automatically make you vulnerable.
No. Yeah. I don't agree with that. And now the very advanced age, even if you don't have a lot of underlying problems, chronic problems, heart disease and diabetes and things like that, but just because you're really in the higher age group, that just alone does make you more vulnerable. But it does for the flu, it does for any respiratory, lots of things, because we have to face it, our immune system just not quite as good as it used to be. So, but otherwise, no, I don't. But this has been a really positive experience in a lot of ways, even though we're restricted in a lot of ways, sure. But
and it's not just our restrictions; it's the state. It's the governor. It's not just Spanish Cove's restrictions. Yeah.
No, it's a public health problem, and some people don't understand some of the recommendations because it's a public health problem. And I go back, I worked in infectious disease for many years, and particularly back in the 60s. I was a tuberculosis laboratory supervisor at the VA in Oklahoma City. And at that time, tuberculosis was still a huge problem. And that was mandatory. Then they still had sanatoriums. They isolated and quarantined those patients. And it was illegal if they got up and walked out and wouldn't take their medication, they could be arrested and brought back in because it was a public health exposure. And I don't know if we've lost that down the years or not, but we understood then that it could be mandatory if you were exposing people. So
interesting. I didn't live through that, so it's interesting for me to know. Is that that's the shot in the arm that leaves the scar, right?
No, that's smallpox.
Oh,
that's smallpox. Okay.
Yeah, and the same thing back when they really had all of those infectious diseases and we had no vaccine.
Interesting.
Smallpox. I mean, they really quarantined people then, and it was a mandatory quarantine for smallpox, even some measles, for whooping cough, all of those diseases, polio. You know, we grew up in the time before polio vaccines. And so I can remember in the summertime, you were restricted. You couldn't go out to the public swimming pool, and a lot of mandated things. But public health was very strong that because we didn't have any protection, they would quarantine, and it was not a choice a lot of times.
Right.
You were supposed to adhere to the public health mandates.
Wow. So you guys have been through this, some of you more times than us, obviously. And so this is minor in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like.
Well, this is really restricted as a pandemic, to be really restricted just community-wise, world-wise. No, I think the other was in kind of spots here and there.
Okay. Yeah, different situation.
Yeah, very, very different. But
well, that may be another topic to come back and get with Nan on, so we can hear the history behind that, how that was handled in comparison. How fun would that be? That'd be a good lesson for me to hear. Do you want to have any share with any thoughts with the group before we go?
We hope that we can be back to having in-person seminars at some time in the near future. We look forward to doing that. And, you know, I think more and more people are interested in moving in now because they want to be in this type of community, to not have to worry should the pandemic or another type of pandemic hit us again. So people are making plans even more so now.
So I know you guys are all amazing about when people that are new to the campus, and Jill, I know we've introduced people before through the Senior Living Truth series, and Jill will usually connect them with people that can answer their questions. And I just want to appreciate you guys for being willing to share your experiences with people, because we're marketers. We're biased, right? And people need to hear from people who are living here as opposed to people who get paid to do this.
That's right.
Right? Even though it's genuine and it's sincere, I think that hearing from you guys is more powerful and important for people. So if you're listening to the webinar, I think it's important for you to ask people like the Gillespies and the Coreys and Nan Scott about their experience. Don't take our words for it. Don't take Jill's word for it. She loves Spanish Cove. She's an advocate of Spanish Cove, but she doesn't live here. They live here. And so I think we owe it to people. Well, she kind of does. She spends more time here than she does at home, for sure. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
True. They pay her to live here. She doesn't pay to live here. How about that?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, well, thank you guys again for allowing me to be on the screen with you. It's an honor always and a privilege. I always learn something from this group. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you all so much, because we couldn't have had this event without your comments and taking time out of your day. I know you miss yoga and Stretch and Strengthen and made other appointments.
Should we give Kathleen a shout out?
Absolutely. So behind the scenes, Kathleen Garrett, our events coordinator, you all should see what she's done in my office right now. You'd be so impressed.
Yeah. It's like a full-blown studio they've got going on here. It's awesome.
Nikki and I feel like we should be on News 9 or Channel 5 or something because we're ready to go. She has this set up with lights, camera, action, and it's so exciting.
We'll post pictures on your Facebook
We should
page
post pictures,
so that people can see how professional we look.
Yep, and I know she's helped some of you all too. She's I know she bought Cody. Cody's a resident that's
Yep.
lived here over 10 years. She's in her 80s. She just purchased her an iPad.
And Kathleen's helping with all that.
And,
Yep.
and this is a lady that uses a flip phone. And
Right.
now she's FaceTiming.
Right. Awesome.
So anyway, but
It
yeah,
can be done.
thank you, Kathleen, behind
Yeah.
the scenes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. And thank you
Kathleen.
all so much. And check here to see if
Yeah.
we have any more questions or comments or
And this was recorded, so we'll be posting it online. So
Right.
you can find it on the Spanish Cove Facebook page, on the Buckley Realty Group Facebook page. And if you can't find it, call in and one of us will help you find it.
absolutely, yes.
All right.
And hope that we see some of you on our next coming up
Yeah.
2 seminars,
Yeah.
because I'm real excited about hearing
Tuesday.
on Tuesday about the truth about the Oklahoma real estate market. It's really going well.
It's really booming. Yeah.
And then also about money matters affairs and how to
Yeah.
pay for senior living, especially during a pandemic too.
Yeah.
So
All right. Thank you guys. Go have
thank
your
you
lunch.
so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Bill, Helen, Tom,
See ya.
Vicki, Dan. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.